Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and being a producer of Wrestle Massacre as well as Inside Movies Galore, I am David Strege, and welcome to Delusions of Grandeur. Enjoy the reviews. I certainly did.
Okay, Dave, that's it. Screw you and your college flunkies. I've had enough of this from you and from everyone else. I know what you guys are trying to do. Break me down, drive me out of the force. Well, it's going to take a hell of a lot more than a lame prank like this to get Curtis Mooney to throw in his badge, so fuck you. Over.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Inside Movies Galore. I'm your host, David Strege, and here I have another review for you, except this time it's of a film of a different feather, and it is absolutely the worst horror film I have ever seen. And it's reached some kind of a cult status. I guess it's directed by James Nguyen, and he did this with, I guess, his production company, which I'm not sure if I can call it a production company because he spent no budget. And normally I'm a fan of low budget films, and this was just made crappily. I have to say, I was not a fan of this film, but evidently his production company, Movie Head Pictures, and Severin Films picked this film up for distribution. So here's what the film looks like. But anyways, 3/4 of this film is spent having two people meet, a man and a woman. A man who is definitely out of her league, and he's going to be a software engineer, and she ends up being a model with Victoria's Secrets. And it's kind of like a fantasy life where the two end up getting together, going on dates, double dates, and then about 3/4 of the way through, this would be Rod and Natalie, who are played by Alan Bogg and Whitney Moore. There is actually some archive footage with Tippi Hedren in this, and basically what happens is, evidently Rod is trying to sell solar solar satellites or something like that, and so on and so forth through the movie. And they go walking on a beach and find a dead bird or dead eagle, and it just happens to be eagles and vultures that end up attacking them, and they run into some whiny little kids, and these birds, they look like animated clip art that You know, you click on the mouse, they only move a couple of inches. You click on the mouse some more, they move a couple more inches more, you know, that kind of thing. In fact, it almost looks like I could play duck hunt with these birds. And I'm sorry to rip this movie apart, but there was a moment where I guess one of Rod's bosses was doing a presentation about how their company was merging with this other company, and uh, they just repeated the clapping that was going around like 7 times, and that was boring. And I was wondering, what the hell does this have to do with birds? I mean, I assume that this was supposed to be a knockoff of Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, and it doesn't even come close to doing that. It's not even funny, and like I said about those whiny nose kids, Susan and Tony, when they end up having seaweed being their only meal, they whine about having happy meals. So I almost wanted them to have their eyes pecked out. It wasn't even the greatest film, so I didn't enjoy this film. I hate to rain on everybody's parade. It wasn't funny. It wasn't entertaining. I picked it up because I thought that this might have I would put this up there with it being as bad as The Room. And I know that a lot of people believe that Tommy Wiseau's movie is like the greatest bad film ever. It was not. And sorry to rain on everybody's parade. I just wasn't a fan of this film. So I'm sorry if I'm raining on anybody's parade. I'm going to check out the second one to see if it's any better. But I would say the only good thing about this film is that Whitney Moore is definitely some decent eye candy. Other than that, I don't know. So hopefully you enjoyed my description of this film. Like and subscribe to my page if you have not. Definitely check out my other reviews. This was a film done in 2010 called Birdemic, Shock and Terror. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I am sorry I'm so sarcastic, but yep, the graphics on this were horrible beyond viewing whatever. It's trash. Sorry. I can't say anything more bad about it. In any case, like, share, and subscribe. Hopefully you enjoyed my description of this film, and happy viewing. I want my hour and 45 minutes back. Thank you. Have a great day. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Inside Movies Galore. I'm your host, David Straggy, and here I have another review for you. And this time I am returning to the world of Birdemic by director James Nguyen, or I think that's how you say it. And he, this time, has used his movie head pictures as well as I Got a Fish Productions. And this was put out and distributed by a division of MVD Visual. So, yeah, he thought it was a good idea to create a sequel of a totally bad and almost unwatchable film. So he has his two actors, one actor and actress that played in Birdemic, and they were Rod and Natalie, who were played by Alan Bogg, who definitely seemed like he was a character that was out of his league, and yet they put him in a work type situation where he would actually be in her league. But he was dressed like a jock then. Now he is supposedly a successful solar panel computer specialist of some sort, and Natalie is supposedly some model. And the beginning of this film, which is called Birdemic 2, The Resurrection. And here's what the film looks like. It was filmed in 2013. So we have, in the very beginning of this film, we have Bill, I believe, who is played by Thomas Favaloro, who we see walking and walking and walking until he gets to a cafe where just the first random waitress he comes across, he is immediately inspired to ask her to for an audition for his movie that he has not yet gotten the finances for. And evidently, Rod and his, I think they're husband and wife now, or maybe they're still girlfriend, boyfriend. I don't know what the relationship is, but they are together, and they end up walking into this cafe, and having not seen the guy in 5 years, he says Bill says he's in need of $100 million. And after a little bit, Rod says, "Sure, I'll give you 90, and once it's complete, I'll give you the 90 million or 90,000 or something like that." He wasn't asking for a whole lot, so it was 100,000 that he was actually asking for, and he said that he'd give him 90,000. Who in their right minds, who hasn't seen anyone or heard from anyone for 5 years, would just turn around and give that amount of money, unless they were really good friends at that point in time? But wouldn't they have actually talked to each other like over time, which was not really mentioned? But in any case, a little bit later, Bill runs into Gloria, who is played by Chelsea Turnbow, who is the actress that he found at that cafeteria. And somehow or other, they end up pairing up with Rod and Natalie, while apparently they are all in Hollywood, and they start to get news forecasts of an epidemic that had started in the same bay that Rod and Natalie were in Hollywood. And that's when, throughout the different sets that they bumble through and end up picking up random film crew along the way, ultimately the film turns into a little bit of a bird attacking movie, and a little bit of a zombie film. I wasn't expecting that Return of the Living Dead nod to where a bunch of acid rain evidently gets sifted into a cemetery while they are in an RCA camper of some sort, and they stop and see some people in the cemetery, and it just so happens to be that they are the animated living dead that were resurrected after this so-called rainfall. which I assume has something to do with the Birdemic situation. Although I'm not exactly sure how. So, other than that, they all end up at a pool, and voila, the end. Several people die along the way. They definitely went into that World War II B bomber kind of animation. They were still clip art. They were still horrible. There was still parts of the film where it had terrible audio, and in the very beginning, there was a part that almost seemed like it was going to go into a repetitive scenery where you kept seeing a scene looped several times. But I think they got out of the loop, and voila. So yeah, better camera work on some scenes, and a little bit more eye candy with some of the actresses. But that's about as good as it gets, folks, with this movie. So I'm sorry to give more of a negative review on this. It wasn't to me. It's like the filmmaker wasn't even trying, and he was drawing on things. And though I understand that he's from a different background, and maybe he is influenced by some of these films, I really think that he needs a better creature design, because these are worse than sci-fi's creatures, which are pretty bad indeed. So hopefully you've enjoyed my description of this film. Like it or not, go and view it if you want. I will keep this film in my collection only because of how bad it is, because I really like collecting bad films and figuring out which ones are the bad films, at least to me, because for a great extent of some of the films that I enjoy, I like some pretty bad films. These films weren't even trying. They didn't even have budgets. Although I could see that maybe they actually used somewhat of a budget, because they actually got some cool vehicles, I guess, in this one. But other than that, this one was a kill thrill for me. So if you enjoy stupid, I would still put this up there with as bad as The Room, and I won't watch The Room again. So I understand that it's gathered a cult following, and so is these. This was trash. This was just total and utter trash. Sorry. I won't be revisiting these again anytime soon. So like and subscribe to my page if you have not. Definitely check out some of my my other reviews. Check out some of my future reviews. I was not entertained by this film. I won't recommend these films unless you really want just to pop in a film of total stupidity for anyone. But yeah, thank you for listening to my rants, and have a great day, evening, or morning, wherever you are. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You were good, kid, real good. But as long as I'm around, you'll always be second best, see?